Travis Meadows, thank you so much for taking your time and energy to put out there and talk to us all about creativity and songwriting tools. Um, just so everybody knows who they're watching, I'm Andrea Stolpe. I teach songwriting courses at Berkeley and USC and blah, blah, blah. And I've asked Travis Meadows, recording artist and illustrious songwriter, to talk about what can we do during this challenging time? What can we do to stay creative, and some specific tools of songwriting that we can practice during this time? Um, and so if that's all right, Travis, I'm going to tell people a little bit about you.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, have at it.
Okay. Well,
It look a lot than
so
me.
go ahead. Sorry.
I said it'll look a lot better than me telling you about me. It'll probably sound better too.
Ah, well, so Travis, you're based out of Nashville, correct?
Yes.
Right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have been writing for other artists as well as yourself, and just looking at all the folks you've been writing for. I mean, I don't have enough room on my printer pages to list everything that you've got credits on. But some of these, I mean, everything from Winona Judd to Eric Church, uh, Jake Owen, Kenny Chesney. It's just, you're kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I've been really, really lucky, very fortunate. And I don't take that for granted either. I'm very grateful today for all of that. It really was a lot of luck, because I moved to town to be a writer when I was 38 years old. It was way too late. You're supposed to start a lot earlier than that, and I was doing other things. And then when I got to town, I I did like everybody else does, and just tried and tried, and nothing worked. Then I had kind of a real challenging time. A quick Google search, then you'll find I've been very vocal about my past struggles with the addiction and other things. But on the other side of that, I started as a way to find some healing and a way out of the hole that I had dug for myself. I started writing songs and making a record, basically. To make a long story shorter, and that record, little did I know, I was making it for me. I never really intended for anybody to hear that record. It was therapeutic and very self-indulgent, to be honest with you. I was just writing songs about me, and I was documenting me getting sober and what that was like. The record wound up being a record called Killing Uncle Buzzy, and something really miraculous happened. Number one, as it took me 9 months to finish that project, and I stayed sober for the entire time.
Wow.
And that was a kind of a world record for me. 9 months was a very long time, considering 24 hours was very difficult. And then on top of that, not only did I get and stay sober, but that record started growing legs and getting on famous people's buses. Dierks Bentley, Jake Owen was the first one.
Yeah.
He actually recorded a song off of that record. And then because of that record, Dierks Bentley's people were listening to my catalog, and he recorded a song called Riser.
Mm-hmm.
I never recorded, but it was a huge song for him. And it was kind of, between him and Jake, that was kind of the launching point. And about that time, Eric Church came knocking, and I started getting on the bus with him and writing with him for his projects. And then it's just a blur. It just turns into this incredible wave of lucky break after lucky break after lucky break, that's the short version. It's been a really incredible ride. I was just with Eric Church about a month ago. He went to North Carolina and moved an entire studio set up there, and and he started bringing all of his songwriting buddies up there. And the idea was to write a song in the daytime and then record it at night. It was the courage that something like that would take is unbelievable. Actually, I can't. I don't. There's no way I could do that. I have to whittle and shine and spit songs for quite some time before I will trust them enough to record them. So it was quite a brave thing that he did. But that was the whole idea for him was he felt like everybody was too comfortable and he wanted everybody to be uncomfortable, including himself. So it's going to be really interesting to hear that project and hear how that winds up. And, I don't know if any of my songs made it or not. So that's still kind of up in the air too.
Right.
Yeah, it's been good though.
Let's talk about that willingness to be uncomfortable in terms of writing. One of the things that I'd like to do through these interviews is give songwriters and artists space to be productive with specific tools on their craft. And something that I see in your music is these incredible lyrics that have lots of furniture in them, lots of imagery, sensory language, whatever people call it.
Sure.
So if I may, here's a little bit of lyric for people. I've been hungry like a stray dog in an old abandoned town. Went running just for running's sake, 'cause I couldn't settle down. I have dined with kings and princes, been granted all 3 wishes that just left me wishing I had more. So it starts out with this hungry like a stray dog in an old abandoned town. Is there anything that you do to come up with these images that you use? And I could read your over and over throughout your lyrics. It's just awesome.
Well, if you move down to the chorus on that song, that is in a roundabout way where everything originated, which is deeply personal. I admitted a little earlier that I can be quite often self-indulgent with my writing. And most of my success, I've just been writing about me, which is so funny. But the second, the next part of that song, it's really a little more close to where I was at. And then all we had to do was go out and look for a few chairs and a couch and a couple pictures to put on the wall. But the central piece was that that next part there.
Shall I read it?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I keep trying to get high, but the need for satisfaction leaves me so unsatisfied. I'm a little more content with who I am than who I was, and I have learned to love the comfort when it comes, like a first cigarette in the morning buzz.
After getting sober and before quitting smoking cigarettes, the only legal buzz that I could have would be that very first cigarette in the morning. And I would go outside and sit on my back porch and I would have a cup of coffee and I would light up a cigarette. And anybody that has any history with smoking knows that very first cigarette, after you've been asleep for 8 hours and you get up, the very first cigarette, the very first couple of puffs, you get a little bit of a buzz and it doesn't work for the rest of the day. But you keep trying because you want that initial feeling. And it's kind of the same reason why addicts, they get high that first time and they chase it for the rest of their lives. And that's kind of where that originated, was the hunger. But I will say it's not about the buzz as so much as the comfort on the backside of that, if that makes sense. I'm a little more content with who I am than who I was. And I've learned to love the comfort when it comes, those rare occasions when it's okay. Let's look at today. It is insane, and the world is crazy right now, and we're scared to leave our house with this coronavirus thing. and yet my son is downstairs, who I love, and my wife, who I love dearly, is downstairs, and I can sit up here in my studio and be scared to death. And then I walk down and I see them, and it's okay just for a moment, you know, and I appreciate those little moments. And that's the comfort when it comes, and that's the whole basis for that song, was not so much the buzz as the learning to appreciate the comfort on those rare occasions when it does. I have a tendency to be a bit of a pessimist, and it's funny. I did a for the past 3 nights I've been doing a Facebook Live, and I did it actually very selfless reasons, as selfish as I can be. I was watching my friends panicking on Facebook and panicking on Twitter and Instagram, and you know, we in Nashville, we just got hit with a tornado less than a mile from my house. I heard that tornado when it came through. It's terrifying. So we were still reeling from that. And then the coronavirus thing comes. And so I'm watching my friends just unraveling right in front of us.
Yeah.
And the world seems like the floor has come out from under us. And there were so many people volunteering with hammers that they actually put a waiting list on it. So we couldn't go and help. And so I said, well, I'll tell you one thing I can do. I can give a little comfort, you know, live. And so it's funny, I've actually been talking more than singing, although I have been singing. And all of this to make a point that last night in particular, I told a story, and I think it's relevant for this conversation, if you'll beg my indulgence.
Please.
But I told last night, I shared this story that I was still in therapy. Music Cares is a great organization that helps musicians, and we had this aftercare that Music Cares had provided, and it was every Wednesday night. And after getting sober and before having things a little more together, I'm still insane, but I'm less crazy than I used to be. And I remember speaking to the therapist, and I said, man, this thing isn't working, you know, it's not right. And I don't know how to deal with it. And he said, you know, sometimes it's helpful to lean into the pain instead of trying to run away from it, because, you know, we're wired for fight or flight, you know, bear, run. Sometimes the bear is a paper tiger, and you turn around and you look at it and it's not as bad as you thought it was. Sometimes it's a freaking bear and you need to run. But the point that I was making last night was that we can panic and we can freak out, or maybe, just maybe, we can lean into it, and we can use the experiences in a positive and a constructive way. And that's what I'm starting to see happen. People are leaning into it. They're checking on their neighbors. They're doing anything that they can to help. And so leaning into your life and the struggles that hit you every day, with or without the coronavirus, I have found to be very helpful in finding lyrics and finding content. And so there are whispers, there are hints of my personal life. There are secrets that I tell about myself in every one of my songs. I'll probably never tell you which ones are true and which ones are, you know, truth or fiction, but there's a little bit of truth in all of them. And some of them are blatant truths, because I was leaning into it and I needed to get it out. Sometimes I'm not even sure how I feel about something until I write about it. And so, you know, sometimes I'm struggling with an issue, or somebody asks a question, what do you do? And sometimes leaning into it and writing about it is the way that I can process it, come out on the other side and go, well, this is how I feel about it. So,
so true. So true.
yeah.
So I'm going to recap everything you just said, because it's so valuable for songwriters. And let's put this into terms where I'm a songwriter. I want to write a song today and use this time that I'm at home. The thing that you're really talking about here is write what you know. So if anybody's
Sure.
having that feedback, people say, well, write what you know. Don't write about tractors if you didn't grow up around tractors. Don't, you know,
Right.
write what you know. And so what that means then in terms of what we're talking about too is you wrote about the philosophies, the thoughts, and the feelings for the chorus. That's the chorus. And it just happened to end in a image, first cigarette in the morning, buzz.
Yeah.
Which a lot of songs do, right? They'll talk about here's the philosophy in the chorus, the big message is this, and then it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
capped off with that image.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we could start as a songwriter to say, what is something what's a big message that I want to share right now? What do I really think and feel down here is super important for me to say in my next song? And then
Sure.
you said you went back and you said, well, I just needed to hang some pictures on the wall, put a couch, so talk to me about that. How do you put how is the verse supporting the chorus philosophy? Where do you go to get that lyric?
Well, first of all, I need to give credit where credit's due. I wrote this song in particular. If we just want to stay on this song, I wrote this song with Jeremy Spielman, who is hands down one of the best writers ever, and highly undercredited, I might add. And so I remember that particular day, I was kind of dinking around with a little guitar thing, and I'm pretty sure that the whole Stray Dog thing was Jeremy, because he's so brilliant. And we were, just kind of tossing back and forth the notion of that restlessness,
Yes.
right? The restlessness and the unable to settle down, so that when you do land for a minute, the comfort can come right back. So the whole restlessness and I couldn't settle down. And even when I got my wishes and I dined with kings and princes and I got everything I wanted, it still wasn't enough. I still wasn't satisfied. So back to that restlessness and creating that uneasiness. And then so when you land, but I've learned to love the comfort when it comes, it has so much more value after all of that searching and all of the, and Jeremy, is pretty vocal. He's struggled with a lot of the same issues that I have. So, in fact, he was a huge help to me when I was getting sober, because he was a couple of years ahead of me. So, so the whole sobriety thing, I don't want to hover too much on that, because that's not everybody's story. But when you're writing what you know, it just so happens that Jeremy and I both are very familiar with that particular thing. So it was easy to kind of wallow around in that,
So the verse show maybe a songwriter could ask ourselves, what's the feeling? And you said, well, I want to show that feeling of restlessness. What image shows restlessness? And it wouldn't have to be the stray dog. That was appealing at the time. It could be a number of different images that come to mind. Again, that's writing what we know, right?
Sure.
Because what I consider an image to show restlessness is different than what you would think. But that's part of how our whisper of ourselves comes out through our music,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly.
So your job through the verse and the pre-chorus was to show how bad this problem was, so that the solution in the chorus, the relief, feels like it really is a big relief.
Exactly. I like this interview, man. This is I like this. I'm enjoying this.
Thank
It's
you,
nice.
Travis. It's such a pleasure. I mean, your your music absolutely kills me. It's
Well, thank you.
unbelievable. And I gotta say, the thing that you said in the beginning of the interview, where you had been writing for a long time, and then you released your record in 2011, and
2010.
that's 10, and that's when did it kind of feel like suddenly people you kind of felt like inside, like, well, dang it, why didn't all of a sudden people are coming at me with confirmation that I was on the right track, where on the other side of that was crickets, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like that. um
You know what? Ironically, for what it's worth, and it's not for everybody, but the inside story in Nashville is it's a 10-year town. It takes 10 years of digging and rooting and climbing and falling down, and I feel foolish even saying this, but that was my 10th year on the money. On the money. That was my 10th year when things started happening. Now, I have to throw some truth out there, because that's kind of it's important to me. My personal life was a big part of that too, right? Because I was a wreck. And I kind of feel like the whole throwing the surrender flag up on a personal level to the universe and going, I'm done, right? When I quit fighting, the world quit looking like a battlefield, right? And so I felt like an angry fish swimming upstream, and life just kept hitting me in the face, and everything that could go wrong would go wrong, right? And this surrender, this is me personally, this is not advice, but whatever that surrender was, I just let go, and I kind of turned around, right? The angry fish turned around, and I started going in the flow of life, and life's just good things started coming to me instead of bumping into it like an angry, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Swimming upstream. I got in the flow, and all of these things, these good things started happening, and I was not so worried about who was cutting songs anymore, or what door to knock on. I started writing what was important to me. I feel like this would benefit listeners as well. Again, I'm sorry these stories are so long, but this
Great.
is actually about on Facebook, ironically, not an email.
I'm going to
And he
have you
said,
repeat
"Hey,
what you just said, because our connection froze up. Can you talk about what you just said before the Facebook mention?
yes, yeah." The guy, I was just saying the guy that reached out to me. I feel like it's important to circle back a little bit. I'm sorry these stories are so long.
No, it's great.
The guy that reached out to me on Facebook and said, "Hey, we're going to record Riser for Dierks Bentley."
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh my God, this is amazing." Well, that same guy, I don't feel like I should name him just because, and I don't think he would mind, but just anyway, 10 years prior, I had gone and I had knocked on every door in town. And through ASCAP, I'm with BMI now, but through ASCAP, I had gone, and at the time I'd been writing a lot of Christian music before the big fall, my personal fall. And I would go and I would play these songs for this guy, and he would turn around and check his email. And he wouldn't, and so I went back in, had another meeting, played him some more Christian songs. He checked his email. So I came back in and I played him some of my country songs. I said, "You're obviously not interested in these other ones. Here's some country songs." He quit checking his email. He turned around and he started taking notes. And I went, "Well, good, here we go. I have arrived. Man, this town is mine now." And he set me up 3 meetings. And the first 2 went so bad, I did not go to the third one. And the second meeting,
Yeah.
the first guy told me, "I don't believe a word you're saying. I do not, but I don't think you know who you are, and you're still looking for yourself. And when you find yourself, come back and we'll talk."
So many of us have had this exact feedback. So,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. And the second guy said, "I feel like you're writing what you think I want to hear,
Oh, yeah.
as opposed to writing what you know, like you said earlier."
Okay.
Well, the second guy that gave that advice is the guy 10 years later that reached out to me and said, "You're my favorite songwriter in town, and we're going to cut Riser on Dierks Bentley." This circle that I had made was, I was overcome with the circle of life and the irony and the I mean, how could this even, anyway, that's how it happened. And it was remarkable.
That's amazing.
To say the least. Yeah. What a crazy, crazy world.
I think, in this, we can complain about industry and other people's lack of listening or inability to hear about what we're aiming for. But the
Sure.
truth is, in 10 years, we do make progress. And so many times it's really hard to see how our songs are improving.
Right.
One of the things that I notice in your lyrics is how concise they are, and each line is very purposeful. And so could call that almost trimming the fat. A lyric it's concise. I pulled up another lyric that I thought was real cool that you wrote with Lori McKenna and Jeremy.
Mm.
And it starts like this: Pontiacs and daydreams, cigarettes and magazines, backseat full of memories, I can't let go. Classic rock radio, polyester winter coat, crushes that gave up the ghost. Snow is fallen, school is closed, I still remember, I still know. So this oh gosh, it's just awesome, awesome technique where you're just layering on example after example of showing instead of telling us. And then in those kind of cadencing lines, you're giving us the summary in terms of telling us what it means. I can't let go, and I still remember, I still know these things. And it's I think such a helpful tool for songwriters to have a pattern of, how do I assemble a verse? I can do show, 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 and then tell what all that means. And then I can show again for a while and then tell what it means. And it lends such a great focus to a section, because now no longer are we trying to say everything in the song, and then by the time we get to the chorus, we don't know what we're saying anymore because we kind of trampled all over that message. And then,
Right. Right.
So I say all that to kind of ask, what did you do over the years to get better at telling your story? Are there any songwriting processes that started to solidify for you?
Well, the first and probably the most important, and this is probably the last thing that anybody wants to hear, but for me personally, everything, it was like a cat or a woman. Everything started changing when I quit paying attention to them. In other words, I didn't care about their opinions anymore. I did not care about radio, and I did not care about Nashville.
Yeah.
Now this is, again, for me personally, I didn't care because I was trying to save a life. The life just happened to be mine.
Yeah.
But I stumbled onto something that worked, which was this vulnerability and this complete honesty, and kind of walking out of the bathroom with the robe off and not caring anymore, or going to the mall with the robe off. Sure. Here I am in all my glory. And it worked. So I just kind of stayed with that program. And today it's probably cost me cuts, to be honest with you, because I still don't pay attention to the radio. I'm not concerned with what they're doing at all. The game that I play, for me personally, is I want to write my record, or I want to write yours when we get in the room together. That's all I care about. I don't care about radio. I want to write a song that's important to me, or I want to write a song that's important to you. The last thing that Nashville needs is another song. Yeah. We could quit and they would not realize we were gone for 10 years. They have catalogs. Universal has 1,000 songs of mine, at least. They'll probably never see the light of day. The last thing this town needs is another song. But I do believe it is still important, like we said at the beginning of this conversation, that you write something important to you. Then Nashville doesn't matter anymore, does it? And then LA and New York doesn't matter anymore, because we're saying something important. One day I'm going to die. I'm uncomfortable thinking about that, but I'm past the middle of my life now. One day I'm going to die, and I want my son to be able to listen to my catalog and learn something about life. And it's not, it's a roadmap, you know, I'm leaving a roadmap of honest struggles. And I've just been very fortunate that some of those little roadmap, the little pieces of the map that I'm leaving behind were appealing to somebody, an artist or somebody in Nashville, but that was not the intent. It was it purposeful? Yes, it was purposeful to me because it was important to me, but I do not ever, I wonder what Jake Owen's cutting this year. And can I write a song for him? Those days are long gone. Those are pre-Uncle Buzzy thoughts. And for what it's worth, Eric Church told me the very first time that we started meeting, he was so gracious and so kind, and I've never met a guy more driven, and his confidence. He knows who he is, and he knows what his fans want. I would pay big money for that kind of confidence, but he knows. But anyway, he genuinely, he was asking about my career and my, you know, with the process about making my records, and he was genuinely interested. And then he ended that conversation. We wrote a song that day, and then he said, "Don't change, because that's the reason that you're on this bus, is because you're you. The day that you start trying to be in Nashville, I'll find somebody else." And that was, in a roundabout way, the best compliment that he could pay me.
Wow. So when we let the bathrobe, you know, when we take it all off, we end up saying what we really wanted to say. And we often say it more simply. It's almost like when we ask a songwriter, well, what do you want to say with this song? Where was the inspiration? It's amazing how many times that we can describe that quite aptly. And sometimes we can check and see that none of what we just said was actually in the song that we just played.
Isn't it the truth? It's so true.
Yeah, yeah. So that idea of, well, why not? Why not let what I just said be the song, or at least be good parts of the chorus?
Absolutely. At this point in my career, a good idea is like gold, because I've already written everything that I know 3 or 4 times. So a great idea, and when I mean great idea, I mean an idea that is fleshed out enough that I can see the video. Because if I can't see the video, I have a hard time writing it. If you go, let's say, you know, I've got this great idea. It's called The Sunrise in California. I'm like, and well, I had this girlfriend in California, and we used to go out and sit on the hood of my car and watch the sun come up. Now we're getting somewhere. The Sunrise in California didn't do a thing for me, but sitting on the hood of the car with your girlfriend, now I'm starting to say, okay, now I see where this is going. Tell me more. What else did y'all do? How did that make you feel? Are y'all still together? Oh, what happened when you broke up? Are you married? You know what I mean? Those things are important.
So it's the human connection that matters a lot more than what happens in a song doesn't matter.
To me,
yeah.
To me, it's everything. To me, the connection is everything.
Sure.
It's not worth my time. At this point in my career, and I don't mean to be ugly. Please don't misunderstand.
I think it's great.
Yeah, but it's not worth my time. I'd rather make a friend and go have lunch, than to just write a song. But if we're that human connection, and that's something that we're both, and you know, it's funny because this many years into it, I still get really excited, because we're talking about nuts and bolts, and the honesty, the purest truth is that I still don't understand it. Like I start laughing because something will come out, and I'm going, oh my God, I'm not that smart. I promise you, it's magic. It's as close to touching God as I've ever been in my life, because there's nothing. There's a blank sheet of paper. There's nothing. There's no inspiration, and all of a sudden this thing happens, and you're like, no. Ah, yes, this thing is worth everything. and it's still magic. I'm sure I've learned something this many years of writing. I mean, I know a few things about structure, and I know there should probably be a lift in this because I'm getting bored, so let's do something different here.
Sure.
But it's still exciting to me, and it's still, because when it gets to that level of this thing's bigger than either one of us, there's nothing better than that. And it's still magic. It's still magic, man. It's beautiful.
So cool. I'm going to bring up one more technique that I see going on and ask if you have any insight for people. This is a song called Hungry that you wrote with Connie Harrington.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something cool going on here. I'm going to read a little bit of this. I stay hungry all the time. There's always something out of reach. Another set of stairs these feet just want to climb. All these yearning and burning keeps turning this motor of mine. I stay hungry all the time. I stay hungry, that's just what you do when you're stuck here in the middle, between what you want and what you don't want to lose. I used to say this hunger's killing me, but baby, it's what's keeping me alive. I stay hungry all the time. What I thought was really cool is how we sort of assume what a title means. Hungry. My first assumption is that being hungry is not a good thing.
Mm.
And the cool that is so cool here is how you say that actually that the hunger's killing me, but it's what's keeping me alive. And so many times in lyrics I think this came to mind because you said, that's not mine, I'm just pulling this out and thank you, it's a gift. But I see this gift happening over and over where we look at being hungry and sort of flip it. What could be the nugget of beauty in that it's keeping me alive? Was that a intentional, how can we look at being hungry from both sides kind of thing? Do you know what I'm trying to get at?
Well, yeah, I think so. I think so. Again, I need to pass credit where credit is due. Now, on this one, I was writing with Connie Harrington, who, man, I mean, she is a beast. And we're talking about the how personal songs are. When I write with Connie and we're searching and we're looking, she has this indicator. I don't think she would mind. She's such a beautiful, beautiful soul.
Mm.
But when she starts crying while we're talking about the idea, that's when I know we're on the right idea. It's almost like this switch, and we're sitting there talking, and she'll start crying, and I'm like, oh man, this is the one. And that was her line, and I wish I could take credit for it. But I used to say this hunger's killing me, but baby, it's what's keeping me alive. Because we were, the first thing that we do when we walk in is we check in, and we're like, how you doing? Well, I'm doing okay. How you doing? It's, man, I am certifiably insane, because it's like, I'm digging or whatever. And she was really good about kind of wrangling in my insanity. And I think, if I remember correctly, I did kind of have that, I stay hungry all the time.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of that to kind of help jumpstart us. But the taking the hunger and making it something positive as a tool or a technique, I think we just kind of had to work our way towards that, and because we were both in our lives in a positive enough place, that we could tell that that's the better thing to do on a personal level. Mm-hmm. We could let the hunger starve us to death, or we can turn it. Fire is an incredible tool, right? And you pour gas on it, and it's awesome, and it's fun to watch, but then it's gone.
Yeah.
But if you can put a conduit, and you run it and you run it into your house, and then the fire and then all of a sudden it's purposeful and it's useful, and then that fire that's kind of just, and it's gone. Now all of a sudden it's useful, and it's running your car, and it's heating your house, and And so that, that was kind of in every song, in a roundabout way, it always comes back to the personal level again, and one of us, I assure you, one of us were in the place where we were wrestling that hunger that day. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And she's a very gifted writer, and like I said, I think I've learned a few things, but I think a lot of it was just the personal stirring, and we made a decision that day that the better option is to make that, and we just told our truth, and we just wound up getting lucky, and it wound up doing that.
So much of it all the time. Yeah, feels like getting lucky. Grateful for those little gifts. But I love that. I love looking at the title, I'm hungry, if I'm hungry, so I'm hungry, but I'm hungry, 'cause I'm hungry, yet I'm hungry. Looking at all the title from those different preceding words can bring so many new ideas. It's so cool.
Well, yeah, it could be just a utility word, and it could be not worth a dime, not worth the bit if you don't write it correctly. It's like it's darn close to love. I mean, man, write another love song better than it's already been done. There has to be some kind of a twist or a plot to make it unique and something that we haven't heard before. Now that part is not luck.
Sure.
That part is intentional, and somebody like Connie and myself writing, we both at least have enough experience to know that you take a simple word like hungry, if we don't utilize that word in a very interesting way, we're going to lose them by the second sentence, so
we call that at least in the academic world. Oh, sorry, it jumped, so I interrupted you.
No. I think I was done.
We talk about that in terms of writing through a lens. I love that you brought up the love song idea, because the concept of love will continue to be a great idea for a song, but the concept itself is not what drives the song, but it's the lens through which we're writing about love. So in the sense of hungry, y'all wrote about a drive for something more through the lens of hunger. And you could have chosen a different lens to see the drive for something more. So ultimately, as songwriters, and you said it, that part is craft. And so we can choose any concept that moves us to write about. And then our job is to carefully choose the lens through which we're writing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's important. That's important on a personal level,
Yeah.
but you can find yourself in a really dark place quick if you're wired for the hunt like I am.
Okay.
You put on the wrong lens, you can be in a dark place really fast. So it's careful. You have to be careful what lens you look at, and then you apply it to songwriting the same way. And I'm actually working on a new record now, and it is shocking, to be honest. It is shocking because anybody that's a fan of my music or listen to it, you hear the struggle, and you hear the turmoil, and you hear I wouldn't call it darkness, but it's hope, because anybody looking for answers, that's what hope looks like, right? So you hear, but you hear the struggle in all of my past records and songs that are out there. And in this new record, it's all hope, which is so funny to me, because this past couple of years have been as difficult as any I have ever been through in my life. We've had a really tough go, but because of where I'm at personally, that lens that I am choosing, and I didn't realize it until I was 12 or 13 songs in, and then oh God, I guess I'm really I don't know if I'm preaching to me or preaching to you, but the lens that I have chosen to use for the past songs getting ready for this record have every single one of them been hope, and it's hilarious to me knowing my personality. It's really funny, but that, you know, I'm glad to be there. I'm
Wow.
glad to be hopeful today.
Is there anything that you could share with us about when your next Facebook Live might be, or regular
Oh,
time?
well, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna do them until I feel like they're not necessary. Starting 3 nights ago. I'm only doing 15 or 20 minutes, you know, and it's mostly a check-in. I'm like, how are you doing? Because I'm checking. I feel like people are scared and they're feeling a little bit alone, and I just want to make sure that they don't feel alone. So I'm gonna probably just do them every night until I don't feel like we need them anymore. Um,
Thank you,
yeah,
Travis. Well, I'm gonna we'll provide a link to your Facebook Live. Make sure that people can get there and connect with you.
awesome.
Thank you so much for providing some insight into craft. I really think it's encouraging to all of us musicians, songwriters who are in the same space now, looking at not seeing the light of day and connecting with other people as much as we would like.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's helpful, and it was certainly wonderful to talk to you. And yeah, uh, anything I can do ever, just let me know.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Travis.
Yeah.
And also, we'll include a link to your website so people can catch up on your music and
Thank you.
be aware of when your next one comes.
That would be awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time.
Take care.
Yep. Bye bye.
Bye.